Yes, lucky last. It's the end of a long day for everybody, I think. Thank you all for coming. I'm seeking to bust some of the FOGO myths because what we have in New South Wales is a whole lot of regional councils going FOGO and a whole lot of metropolitan councils not going FOGO. And there must be some issues behind that, and I'm not sure that we quite understand all of what they are. I'm going to talk about some of those issues, but the main message is FOGO is worth pursuing, as you've heard from the previous speakers today. Working? Thank you. Right. So the case for organics. When you look at the efficiencies of waste recovery, what we're looking for is your best bang for your buck. So if you're trying to achieve diversion targets, organics is the cornerstone. Lots of diversion, lots of potential diversion there, and the economics stack up. Recovery of organics is a priority for government. The policy settings and investments are driving recovery of organics. The draft EPA, wrong way. The draft EPA infrastructure strategy is looking at 200,000 tonnes a year in organics recovery. Now, you know, that's a lot of recovery. There's recovery coming out of garden organics, but also out of the food organics sector. These growth rates are a little bit debatable. We've done some other numbers on them. And there is still a lot of growth there, but this is probably a more realistic. This is based on previous processor capacity and the known capacity up to 2021. So we're looking at growth in organics, but where's this growth in organics recovery happening? And it's happening in regional New South Wales, not in metropolitan New South Wales. Now, we know that there's around 53%. Justin's figures showed 56 to 60%. There's a lot of organics in those residual bins, and that's what we need to target. That's what we're targeting with FOGO, getting those 53% of garden organics out into the green bin. So what are the options? Well, the options always are, of course, business as usual, which for most councils is a 3-bin system with the residual bin either going to MBT or going straight to landfill. Some other alternatives are the 2-bin system for 2 councils, certainly in Sydney. That is their current business as usual, with the residual going to MBT or AWT, but MBT is a more correct term. Energy to waste is not really going to be a feasible option in the short term in New South Wales. There's a lot of reasons for that, which have been discussed at length. So the option is FOGO. And whether the residual bin then goes to MBT is, an additional option. But the economics of this stack up. It's a well-established and, true and tried process. And the regional councils are making it work. So I'll just, step you through it. Trying to get that 53% of FOGO out, the numbers look like this. We'll ignore the yellow bin for a while. You've got a 720 litre capacity fortnightly. At some point, the green bin drops, the red residual bin drops to a weekly option, and this is where the savings are found. So the average cost of, this is in Sydney, the average cost of processing the red residual bin is around $300, and the green, just garden organics, is around $80. Putting the food into the garden organics bin increases the cost of that processing to $110, and of course the residual remains the same, but you've got 53% less material in that residual bin. And those differentials come between the cost of either MBT or landfill and the cost of residual garden FOGO processing costs. So over the average Metropolitan Council, which is about a 37,000 tonne per annum generation, the savings are about $70 a tonne. Once you get the food out of the residual bin, reduce the cost of the residual bin processing, increases the cost of the garden organics processing, but still there is a $70 per tonne saving to be had. And for the average Metropolitan Council, that's $2.6 million. So this is what it looks like nationally. 35 councils in New South Wales have gone FOGO. How many of those are Metropolitan Councils? 1. That's what it looks like on the map. The darker is garden organics, the paler green is FOGO, and as Mike likes to call it, Sydney is the hole in the donut. This is what we've got. Lots of garden organic services, 2 or 3 councils with a 2-bin service and 1 council with an established FOGO service. There's Waverley, Waverley, there's a few of them with an optional service or a partial FOGO service where you can put food into your green bin, but it's not a highly publicised, nor has it got high participation rates. So this is the situation that we have in New South Wales at the moment. The question really for the EPA is what would it take, what does it take, what will it take to get the 17 or so councils in Sydney that currently have a GO system to go FOGO. Ignore the ones for the moment that have got a contracted AWT processing. There are 17 councils in Sydney with a GO service that could easily shift to a FOGO service. When you ask councils, and this hasn't been done in any substantial way, these are conversations that I have with councils, there are 4, maybe 5, conflate the 2 bottom ones, resistance factors, reasons that they don't want to go FOGO. The community is not interested, MUDs are difficult, contamination rates are too high, we don't want to risk our nice garden organic services, we don't want to get that more contaminated. There's no processors and there's no market for the organics. There's probably a whole bunch of underlying issues that aren't often expressed, but we do need to drill into those. And it's too hard. There's limited staff capacity, current contracts and staff, lack of staff maintain the status quo. It's just an easier place to be. We do need much more detail on what the demotivators are for food organics in Sydney. So the community is not interested. I challenge that because have they really been asked? Most of the rollouts of FOGO across regional and in Victoria haven't been driven by the community saying, hey, we want FOGO. They've been driven by a decision within council. And then the community is brought along into the whole FOGO story. These are some stats from well-constructed surveys of the community. Lots of willingness to participate. And other questions around, caddies, they make a difference. Would you be willing to pay? Some people pay an additional $1 or $2 a week for such a service. Albury, 72% interest in doing it, and they've got an 82% participation rate. You need to ask the community the right questions if you want to know whether a FOGO service will work in the community. Metropolitan Melbourne is not different to Metropolitan Sydney, 71% participation rate. And 66% of the population is saying it should be compulsory. The community, there's capacity in the community to be behind you. Community engagement, as we've heard, is ongoing. It begins before the decision is made, it works all the way through the rollout, and it continues after rollout. Branding, both Halve Waste and Your Organics, a really successful branding of the whole concept of FOGO. And community engagement needs to be ongoing and strong. there's lots of examples of how really good community engagement works. And it needs to be nuanced to your community. And all of the examples that we've heard of do that exactly. They use local people and they drive the local message for the right reasons, for the local reasons. And I think the participation rate that Justin was talking about, the lack of FOGO in the FOGO bin, perhaps some of the questions that need to be asked is, why? Has the message about why been driven to the community? Why are we doing this? Why are we rejigging what we put in our green bin? Linking it, as Cessnock have done and Solar have done, linking it back to food production is a key driver for motivating people to actually participate in a FOGO service. MUDs, yes, they're difficult, but as we saw with Cessnock, they're not impossible. And it's not a reason not to roll it out to the suds. There's lots of ways of working with the MUDs in order to get capacity and, in order to get to the community along with you. Provide shared bins, provide targeted bins, provide strong communication messages, provide free caddies, but research it and research it well. You could do what South Korea have done. Roll out RFID bins and every resident has a tag and they are charged per kilogram of waste that they put in it, and that comes off their annual, so they have a fixed bill and every kilo of food waste that they put into the RFID bins is then deducted from their bill. So the more they put in, the less they pay. Interesting, but it's working. Start with a well-resourced system and talk really strongly to the strata managers and the real estate agents. And communication is absolutely critical. Yep, and as I said, still roll it out to suds. Okay, contamination rates are too high. Well, the numbers don't stack up. The surveys that we've done of contamination rates, they hover around 1% is a pretty good figure. Sometimes they peak up, depends very much on the, well, as one council said, it can be really bad on a bad day. So there's routes that are bad and then that lifts up the contamination rate. But an average of 2.2% is a very manageable contamination level. No processors, no demand, no capacity. There are plenty of organics processors within New South Wales. And in particular, there's a facility in Badgerys Creek, a 50,000 tonne facility in Badgerys Creek, waiting for FOGO. No longer is that an excuse not to go FOGO. Every regional area has capacity to process food organics, and so does, we've got that capacity in Sydney as well. And even if we do generate, the 500,000 or so tonnes that are potentially still sitting in the residual bins in New South Wales, in Sydney, that only covers 51,000 hectares. So the demand for compost is what I'm saying. The demand for compost is there. 500,000 tonnes of organics is a mere 51,000 hectares of land. And if you can see that red dot, that's even an exaggeration of what 51,000 hectares looks like. So farmers are buying compost. They're buying good quality compost. They're buying compost made from FOGO, and they're paying upwards of $26 a tonne for it. So when I hear people say, oh, look, farmers aren't prepared to pay for it, I know for a fact that's simply not true. That's the space I've been working in for the last 20 years. Farmers want compost and they want quality compost. And taking that message back to households is a very critical part of the messaging, to say that this material is turning into organics, that compost that is being used to produce food that you're eating. So what is required? I guess this is a question for all councils to think about. Is it funding for bins? Is it funding for education? Where's that funding going to come from? What we really need is a comprehensive understanding of what these barriers are, particularly for the 17 councils that could do, the nice single two-step dance into FOGO. It'd be really, I think, money well spent if we could understand exactly what those drivers are and provide the means for overcoming them. Making it work, this is what we've been doing a lot with the councils that we work with. Understand the business case. Understand what it is, how much money is involved in setting the system up and what the savings are for your council. And for every council, that's going to be a different story. Get the plans and the strategies in place and get them right. Get them know what things will work in your communities. Educate and keep on educating. Communicate and keep on communicating before, during and after. And maintain and monitor low contamination and ensure that that low contamination message is a critical message in your communication strategies. Go. Okay, my button stopped. There, okay. Developing the business case. 2 minutes. Understand what the options are, understand what the costs of those options are, and decide to do it. When we're running business cases for councils, we option a whole range of scenarios and work out what the differential costs are. That provide caddies, don't provide caddies. What happens if you do this? What are the transport costs? Understand what those are, and then you'll understand what the dollars are for your particular council. Plan strategically. Do the two-step dance, as Cessnock are doing. Introduce garden organics, then subsequently introduce food organics. And I guess the 2.5 step is that. Then you drop down the residual bin to a fortnightly system. Or you can do what ACT have done and just go the one-step dance, introduce FOGO and go at the same time. Communicate, as I've said, before, during and after. The messaging is important, the messaging needs to be local and sharp and communicated across all of the called audiences as well, the non-English speaking audiences. Making FOGO work, there's lots of, as both Halve Waste and Your Organics have demonstrated, there's lots of ways of communicating to bring the community along with you. Go slowly, be gradual, do the two-step dance, provide different options for different... Penrith has done this really, really well. Provided different options for different parts of the community. Big bins, small bins, 2 bins, no bin. Lots of options and opportunities for the residents to actually work out what their needs are and participate as best fits them. Get some well-designed infrastructure and well-designed stickers. Provide ongoing incentives and also provide ongoing disincentives. So the key points for FOGO really is that we recover currently about 1.6 million tonnes. Half of that is garden organics and only 6% of that is food organics across New South Wales. Given that there's 53% to recover, we've got a long way to go. If all councils in New South Wales recovered, there would be 630. It's about 500 and something, 506 tonnes we worked out, 1,000 tonnes, if just metropolitan councils recovered the easily recoverable organics. The average council saved $2.6 million, that's handy. The compost sector would nearly double. And to back all of this, what I think we need to do in order to drive FOGO further in New South Wales and particularly in Sydney is to do a comprehensive study of what the realistic barriers are and how we can get over them. That's me. Thank you.